On a rainy night in Portland, the city lights reflected in puddles forming along the downtown sidewalks. The sound of thunder mixed with the noise of car tires passing over wet streets, and the sky seemed to weigh heavily on the shoulders of those still venturing along the drenched pathways. Robert Mitchell observed the storm through the window of his office on the 20th floor. At 58, he had built an empire in the infrastructure sector, serving as president of one of the region's largest construction companies. His imposing figure contrasted with the fragility imposed by an accident that had left him dependent on a wheelchair 5 years ago. "Mr. Mitchell, the documents you requested are organized," said Sarah, his trusted secretary of more than 15 years, placing a folder on the desk. "Thank you, Sarah. You can head home now. This storm is only going to get worse. You shouldn't stay late. Remember what the doctor said about overworking," she insisted with the familiarity of someone who had weathered many crises together. Robert smiled melancholically. "Some storms aren't just made of water, Sarah. Some are made of betrayal." After Sarah left, Robert opened the folder and reviewed for the 10th time the documents he had collected over the past months. Emails, falsified contracts, bank transfers to offshore accounts, an intricate network of bribes and embezzlement that pointed to a single person responsible, Thomas Harris, his partner and friend of more than 30 years. Robert transferred the files to a small waterproof flash drive and tucked it into the inner pocket of his jacket. Then he picked up the phone. "Tom, we need to talk. Today, at Riverside Bridge. No assistance, no witnesses." From the other end of the line, Tom's hoarse voice sounded suspicious. "Is everything okay, old friend?" "I'll be there in an hour. It's important." Robert hung up without waiting for a response. He looked at the photo on his desk, him and Tom, young and smiling, on the day they inaugurated the construction company. The frame held memories of a friendship that once seemed unshakable. How had they reached this point? He descended in his private elevator to the garage. His driver had been dismissed earlier, exactly as planned. For the first time in years, Robert wanted to act alone. He maneuvered his motorized wheelchair to his adapted car and departed for the meeting that would change everything. On the way, the rain intensified. Robert drove carefully through the flooded avenues when something unusual caught his attention. On a side lawn, near the parking lot of an abandoned equestrian club, stood a horse, completely soaked, visibly shivering. For a moment, Robert hesitated. The clock indicated he was right on time for his meeting with Tom. But something in those vivid, attentive eyes of the animal touched him deeply. Driven by a compassion he hadn't felt in a long time, he stopped the car and maneuvered his wheelchair via the adapted access. He headed to a nearby 24-hour convenience store and bought 2 bananas and an apple. Upon returning, he approached the animal cautiously. "Easy, friend, I'm not going to hurt you." The horse initially backed away but soon approached, as if understanding Robert's genuine intention. It accepted the food with surprising delicacy, eating directly from his hand. "Where did you come from?" muttered Robert, stroking the animal's wet neck. "Someone must be looking for you." That brief moment of connection seemed to awaken something dormant in Robert. For a few minutes he forgot about the documents in his pocket, Tom's betrayal, the worries that consumed him. He felt only the purity of that unexpected encounter. "I need to go now," he said, almost in a whisper. "But I'll come back to help. You." The horse whinnied softly as if it understood. Robert returned to his car with a strange feeling that this encounter wasn't by chance. As he resumed his way to Riverside Bridge, he didn't notice that the animal was watching him attentively, as if it too felt that their destinies were somehow intertwined. Riverside Bridge stood imposingly under the storm, its metal structure gleaming with each lightning bolt that cut across the sky. It was a symbolic location for Robert and Tom. There, 3 decades ago, they had sealed the construction company's first $1 million contract, toasting with cheap champagne and grand dreams. Ironic that they would meet there again, but under such different circumstances. Robert arrived first. He parked his car at a strategic point and maneuvered his wheelchair to the center of the bridge. The rain fell mercilessly, but he didn't care. The weight of the flash drive in his pocket seemed heavier than all the projects he had executed in his life. It wasn't long before Tom's car headlights illuminated the bridge. Robert watched his old friend step out of the luxury vehicle, protecting himself from the rain with a black umbrella. Tom walked with the same elegant posture as always, but Robert could notice an unusual tension in his movements. "This rain is almost biblical, isn't it?" commented Tom, approaching. "We could have met somewhere more comfortable, old friend." "Some matters need to be discussed away from walls with ears," replied Robert, his voice firm despite the water streaming down his face. Tom nodded, a polite smile masking his anxiety. "So, what's this about? You seemed agitated on the phone." Robert studied the face of the man he had considered a brother for so many years. How had he not noticed the signs before? The greed disguised as ambition, the coldness camouflaged as pragmatism. "I discovered everything, Tom. The embezzlement, the ghost accounts, the inflated contracts. I know you've been diverting money from the company for at least 5 years. Tom's smile vanished instantly. His gaze hardened, but his voice remained controlled. "Robert, you're confused. Perhaps the stress of recent months—" "Don't insult my intelligence," interrupted Robert, removing the flash drive from his pocket. "See, it's all here. Every transfer, every falsified document, every hidden beneficiary, including those politicians you cultivate so carefully." Tom observed the small device, his expression transforming into a mask of cold calculation. "And what do you intend to do with that?" "Tomorrow I'll hand everything over to the company board and the authorities. You'll have a chance to explain your version, but I thought you deserved a warning, out of respect for what we've lived through." A heavy silence settled between them, broken only by the sound of rain and distant thunder. Tom stepped forward, his voice taking on an almost paternal tone. "Robert, think carefully. This company is our life. A scandal of this magnitude would destroy everything we've built. Thousands of jobs lost, projects halted, our reputation ruined forever." "You should have thought about that before starting this fraud," replied Robert. Bitterly, Tom sighed, running his hand through his graying hair. "I can explain everything. It's not what you're thinking. We needed capital to win certain bids to ensure we remained competitive." "Don't try to justify the unjustifiable," exclaimed Robert, his voice rising above the noise of the rain. 30 years of partnership. Tom, I trusted you more than anyone. And you still can. We can resolve this internally. Restructure the accounts, return the money progressively, implement new controls. Nobody needs to know." Robert shook his head. "The time for secrets is over." Tom walked to the bridge railing, observing the turbid and agitated river below. "You know what impresses me most, Robert? How you still manage to be so naive after so many years in the market. Do you really believe you're the only one with integrity among wolves? It's not about being righteous or not. It's about respecting the company we built together." Tom turned, his face now a mask of coldness. "You were always the public face, the charismatic one, while I worked behind the scenes, getting my hands dirty so your grand dreams could come true. Do you really think we would have gotten where we are by always playing clean?" The revelation hit Robert like a physical blow. All the victories, all the successful projects, how many had been achieved through questionable means? "I don't believe you," muttered Robert, although a seed of doubt had already been planted. Tom approached the wheelchair, leaning down to be at Robert's eye level. "Give me the flash drive, old friend. For the good of the company. For the good, say, of all of us." Robert clutched the device in his hand. "Never." Tom's gaze hardened. For a moment he seemed to consider his options. Then, with a sudden and unexpected movement, he pushed the wheelchair toward the bridge railing. Robert's chair slid quickly across the wet surface of the bridge, violently crashing against the safety railing. The impact was so strong that the metal structure partially gave way, leaving the chair dangerously tilted over the raging river below. Robert felt his body projected forward, only the safety belt preventing him from being thrown into the turbulent waters. Tom observed the scene with cold eyes, calculating each second. He approached slowly, checking that there were no witnesses on the deserted bridge. "You know what they'll say tomorrow in the news," he said, his voice almost inaudible under the roar of the storm. that the great Robert Mitchell, depressed with financial and personal problems, made a tragic decision. On a stormy night, Robert struggled to balance, feeling the chair precariously teetering over the abyss. "You won't get away with this," he replied, trying to reach the control of his chair, now useless. "You're wrong. I already have," Tom smiled arrogantly. "Goodbye, partner." With one last precise push, Tom sent the chair beyond the damaged railing. Robert felt the void beneath him, the cold air, the vertiginous fall. His body plunged into the turbulent waters of the river, the current immediately dragging him away from the bridge. The icy water invaded his lungs as he fought against the weight of the chair, pulling him to the bottom. With superhuman effort, he managed to release the safety belt, but his limited physical condition made it almost impossible to swim against the current. He felt his strength diminishing with each second, consciousness beginning to fade. "So this is how it ends," he thought, as the dark waters engulfed him. At that critical moment, a different sound cut through the night, a powerful whinny, followed by an impact in the water near him. Robert, already semi-conscious, vaguely perceived a large form moving in the water. Something, or someone, was swimming toward him. On the other side of the bridge, Tom was calmly making his way back to his car when he heard the whinny. He turned in surprise, just in time to see an unmistakable silhouette galloping toward the bridge, its hooves rhythmically beating on the wet asphalt. "What the hell?" he muttered incredulously upon recognizing the same horse he had seen Robert feeding earlier. The animal, driven by some inexplicable instinct, had followed Robert's car to the bridge. Upon witnessing what had happened, the horse acted with an almost human urgency. Without hesitation, it leaped over the damaged railing, plunging into the turbulent waters. Tom remained paralyzed for a few seconds, unable to process what his eyes had just witnessed. Then, with his heart racing, he ran to his car and sped away. In the depths of the river, Robert had completely lost consciousness when he felt something firm grab his shirt. With surprising strength, the horse pulled him upward, fighting against the current. Its teeth firmly held the fabric, while its powerful legs cut through the water toward the shore. The battle against the waters seemed to last an eternity. When it finally reached a shallower point, the animal dragged Robert to the muddy bank, away from the main flow of the river. There, exhausted by the incredible effort, the horse remained beside the unconscious man, anguished whinnies cutting through the rainy night. By coincidence or fate, an emergency response vehicle was conducting a patrol of the areas most affected by the storm. Officer Michael Rodriguez was driving slowly along the marginal avenue when his headlight captured an unusual reflection on the riverbank. "What's that?" he asked his colleague, slowing the vehicle. "Looks like an animal." And, "There's someone down there." In seconds, the two officers ran to the shore, finding the surreal scene. An unconscious and drenched man, with a horse standing beside him like a guardian. "He's not breathing," exclaimed Michael, kneeling beside Robert and immediately initiating first aid procedures. While his colleague called an ambulance on the radio, Michael applied chest compressions, trying to expel the water from Robert's lungs. The horse watched attentively, not moving an inch away, as if understanding the gravity of the situation. After what seemed like an eternity, Robert coughed violently, expelling water. His body trembled uncontrollably, but he was alive. "Unbelievable," muttered the second officer, observing the horse that now approached closer, touching Robert's face with its muzzle. "If I wasn't seeing it with my own eyes." The ambulance arrived within minutes, and the paramedics quickly stabilized Robert. When they tried to move the horse away to facilitate their work, the animal refused to leave, whinnying nervously. "Let it stay close," suggested Michael, noticing the strange bond. "It seems like it saved this man." During the transport to the ambulance, the horse followed alongside the stretcher, as if determined not to lose sight of Robert. The scene moved even the most experienced paramedics. "What do we do with the animal?" asked one of them. "I'll call animal control to take care of it," replied Michael, "but make sure they know at the hospital about this story. This horse is a hero." As the ambulance departed with sirens blaring toward Portland Memorial Hospital, The horse tried to follow it, being gently restrained by the officers. No one there could imagine that this extraordinary rescue was just the beginning of an even more surprising story. In Robert's soaked jacket pocket, the flash drive protected by the waterproof casing remained intact, guarding the secrets that had almost cost his life. And in the shadows of the city, Tom Harris was already planning his next steps, unaware that his crime had had an unlikely witness, a horse that, against all odds, refused to abandon its mission. Portland Memorial Hospital was buzzing with activity the next morning. Rumors about the strange rescue from the previous night spread through the corridors like wildfire. The story of the businessman saved by a horse seemed like something out of a fantasy novel, and each new version added more extraordinary elements to the account. In room 507, Robert Mitchell remained unconscious, connected to monitors and devices that registered his vital signs. The physician in charge, Dr. William Brooks, carefully examined the recent tests. "His condition is stable but concerning," he explained to the head nurse. "The time submerged caused moderate hypoxia. We can't predict with certainty when he'll wake up or what sequelae he might have." Outside the hospital, a small crowd of journalists was already gathering. News of the horse miracle, as some were beginning to call it, attracted the attention of the local press. Among the curious onlookers, a man observed discreetly, keeping away from the cameras. It was Tom Harris, unrecognizable under a cap and dark sunglasses, trying to catch any information about Robert's condition. At the Animal Control Department, Michael Rodriguez, the emergency response officer, who had participated in the rescue, was visiting the horse that had been temporarily housed there. "How's our hero doing?" he asked the veterinarian caring for the animal. "Surprisingly well considering what it went through," replied Dr. Jessica Morgan. "It shows no signs of hypothermia or severe exhaustion. In fact, it's restless, as if it wants to leave here." "Any identification?" "Microchip. Brand, anything indicating the owner?" "Nothing. It's not registered as a missing animal in any records. It's an Andalusian thoroughbred from what I could assess. A valuable specimen. It's very strange that nobody has claimed it." Michael approached the horse, which immediately came to the improvised stables gate. "You're a mystery, buddy," he murmured, caressing the animal's muzzle. "And a hero, too." At that moment, his cell phone rang. It was a colleague from the hospital. "Mike, the businessman is starting to show signs of consciousness. He's mumbling something about a horse and a flash drive. I think you should come here." The offices of Mitchell and Harris Construction, news of Robert's accident, was causing commotion among the employees. Tom had arrived early, perfectly composed in his impeccable suit, demonstrating appropriate concern. "It's simply terrible," he told the directors gathered for an emergency meeting. Robert had been facing a silent depression in recent months. The market pressures, his physical condition, I fear it was too much for him. Sarah, Robert's secretary, observed Tom with barely disguised suspicion. She had known her boss for 15 years and had never noticed any signs of suicidal tendencies. Besides, Robert had acted strangely the day before, storing documents and making private calls. Discreetly, she withdrew from the meeting and headed to Robert's office. Using her emergency key, she entered and locked the door. She began to systematically search through drawers and files, looking for any clue of what her boss had been investigating. In the bottom of the last drawer, she found a sealed envelope with the inscription, "In case of emergency." With trembling hands, she opened it and discovered printed copies of accounting documents, bank transfers, and handwritten notes by Robert. Even with her limited knowledge of corporate finance, Sarah was able to perceive the gravity of what she was seeing, evidence of an elaborate scheme to divert resources. "My God," she whispered, finally understanding. It wasn't an accident. At the hospital, Robert was beginning to emerge from unconsciousness. Fragments of memory appeared in his mind like pieces of a puzzle. The bridge, Tom, the fall, the cold water. And the horse, especially the horse he had fed hours earlier, swimming toward him in the turbulent waters. Was it possible or just a delusion caused by oxygen deprivation? His lips formed disconnected words, catching the attention of the nurse on duty. "Flash drive, evidence, Tom, horse. He's trying to communicate something," she said to Dr. Brooks, who had just entered the room. He keeps repeating these words. The doctor examined Robert's pupils. Consciousness is returning, but he's still confused. It's common for patients in this state to mix real memories with confabulations. The door to the room opened, allowing Detective Wilson, a middle-aged man with a perceptive look, accompanied by Michael Rodriguez, to enter. "How is he, doctor?" asked the detective. "Stable, but not fully conscious yet. He needs rest." "I understand, but this case has unusual aspects. We need to understand what happened on that bridge." At that moment, a commotion in the corridor caught everyone's attention. Nurses were running toward the service entrance, and shouts of surprise could be heard. "What's happening?" questioned Dr. Brooks, going out to check. Minutes later, he returned with an incredulous expression. "The horse is here. Somehow it escaped from animal control and came to the hospital. It's in the inner garden, refusing to leave." Michael smiled as if expecting this. "Can I bring it here?" he suggested. "It might help in Mr. Mitchell's awakening process." "That's absurd," protested the doctor. "We can't allow an animal inside the hospital. The sanitary regulations—" "Doctor," interrupted Detective Wilson, "I have reason to believe that what happened yesterday wasn't a simple accident. If this horse can help clarify the facts." The debate was interrupted by a sound coming from the bed. Robert had opened his eyes, fixing them on the group with unexpected intensity. "The horse," he whispered in a hoarse voice. "It saved me." Everyone turned to the patient, surprised by the sudden lucidity. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm Detective Wilson. Can you tell us what happened last night?" Robert closed his eyes for a moment, as if organizing his thoughts. "Tom tried to kill me. The evidence on the flash drive." His words fell like bombs in the silent room. The detective immediately took notes, while the doctor checked Robert's vital signs, concerned about the stress of the situation. "Where is this flash drive, Mr. Mitchell?" asked Wilson. Robert instinctively brought his hand to his chest, searching for the inner pocket of his jacket, now replaced by a hospital gown. "It was with me, Michael, in my pocket, was waterproof." Michael thought quickly. "His clothes must be in the hospital laundry. I'll check immediately." As the officer left, a loud and clear whinny sounded through the corridor, as if the horse was responding to Robert's voice. The businessman smiled weakly. "He's here," he murmured. "I knew he would come." News of Robert Mitchell's recovery spread quickly. In the luxury penthouse where he had lived alone since his divorce, Tom Harris watched the local news with an impassive expression. The reporter spoke animatedly about the Riverside Bridge miracle and mentioned that police were investigating the circumstances of the incident. "Damn it," muttered Tom, turning off the television. He needed to act quickly. He picked up the phone and dialed a number he rarely used. "It's me, we have a problem. Mitchell survived." "Yes, exactly. I need someone to enter the hospital and check if he still has the flash drive." "No violence, just recover the device." Discreetly. At the hospital, the horse's presence in the inner garden had become a phenomenon. Staff took photos. Patients asked to see the equine hero. And the administration, initially reluctant, eventually yielded to public pressure, allowing the animal to remain in an adapted area. Michael Rodriguez was heading to the laundry when he noticed strange movement. A man dressed as a maintenance worker was discreetly examining bags containing patients' belongings. "Can I help you?" asked Michael, approaching. The man startled. "Just checking a problem with the plumbing," he responded, quickly moving away. Michael, with instincts sharpened by years of work in emergency response, decided to follow him discreetly. He saw when the man entered an empty locker room and began speaking quietly on the phone. In Dr. Brooks's office, Sarah had arrived, visibly nervous, carrying the envelope she had found in Robert's office. "I need to see my boss urgently," she insisted. "I have vital information about what happened." The doctor, sensing the gravity of the situation, personally escorted her to Robert's room, where Detective Wilson was still collecting preliminary testimony. "Sarah!" exclaimed Robert upon seeing her, his voice stronger than before. "Mr. Mitchell, I found this," she said, handing the envelope to the detective. "These are copies of the documents you were investigating. I believe they prove that Mr. Harris is involved in an embezzlement scheme at the construction company." Wilson quickly analyzed the documents, his expression hardening with each page. "This corroborates your version, Mr. Mitchell, but we need the original flash drive you mentioned. According to you, it contains more complete evidence, correct?" Robert nodded. "Bank transfers, emails, falsified contract, everything is there." At that moment, the sound of hooves was heard in the corridor, followed by surprised exclamations from the nursing staff. To everyone's amazement, the horse appeared at the door of the room, escorted by a veterinarian and bewildered security guards. "We couldn't keep him in the garden," explained the veterinarian. "He simply advanced, as if he knew exactly where he wanted to go." The animal whinnied softly upon seeing Robert, approaching the bed with surprising delicacy for its size. "Hey, friend," whispered Robert, extending his trembling hand to caress the animal's muzzle. "You really came to find me, didn't you?" To everyone's admiration, the horse remained perfectly calm, its gaze fixed on Robert as if they were communicating in a language only they understood. Dr. Brooks, after the initial surprise, noticed something extraordinary on the monitors. "Impressive. His vital signs have completely stabilized since the animal entered. Blood pressure, heart rate, everything normalized." Dr. Jessica Morgan, the veterinarian who had accompanied the horse, approached with curiosity. "There's a phenomenon called therapeutic zoo interaction, where the presence of animals accelerates patient recovery, but we rarely see such an immediate and profound response." Detective Wilson, a pragmatic professional by nature, seemed the only one not completely caught up in the moment. "Very touching, but we still need to find that flash drive," he reminded them. As if responding to the comment, the horse moved away from the bed and went to a small cabinet where the few saved belongings of Robert were stored. With its muzzle, it persistently nudged the door. "He wants to show something," observed Sarah, the first to react. Opening the cabinet, they found Robert's soaked jacket carefully folded. The horse continued nudging the fabric until Sarah checked the inner pocket. "The case is here, but..." She examined the small waterproof case. "It's damaged. The flash drive isn't inside." A heavy silence took over the room. If the device had been lost in the river, the most compelling evidence against Tom would have disappeared. "Maybe it's still in the clothes," suggested the detective. "Check every inch." Michael Rodriguez burst through the door at that moment, breathless. "There's a suspicious man in the laundry. He seems to be looking for something in the patient's belongings. I've alerted hospital security." Wilson immediately understood the situation. Tom already knows Robert survived and must be after the flash drive. The horse, surprisingly, showed agitation upon hearing the news, as if it understood the gravity of the situation. It began to whinny and move restlessly around the room. "What's wrong with him?" asked Dr. Brooks, concerned that the animal might get frightened and cause damage. Robert watched attentively. "He knows something," he murmured. "During the rescue, I vaguely remember. He swam with me to the shore, stayed by my side." The horse approached the bed again, but this time gently nibbled at the sleeve of Robert's hospital gown, as if trying to pull him. "He wants us to follow him," concluded Sarah, interpreting the unusual behavior. "This is absurd," protested the doctor. "Mr. Mitchell is in no condition to leave the bed." "Bring my wheelchair," requested Robert with sudden determination. "I trust him." Detective Wilson, after moments of hesitation, nodded. "I'll accompany you. If Tom really sent someone to recover the evidence, we need to act before it's too late." Minutes later, an unusual procession moved through the hospital corridors. Robert in his wheelchair, pushed by Michael, followed by Detective Wilson, Sarah, and the veterinarian, all guided by a horse that walked with evident purpose, ignoring the astonished looks of patients and staff. The animal led them outside the main building, toward the rear parking lot, where service vehicles and ambulances were parked. There, near a flower bed, it stopped and began to sniff the ground insistently. "What is he doing?" asked Wilson, his patience diminishing. Robert watched with growing understanding. "He hid something here," he murmured. "When they brought me to the hospital, he must have come along in the ambulance." Michael knelt at the spot indicated by the animal and began to dig with his hands. After removing a few inches of soil, His fingers touched something solid. "There's something here," he exclaimed, carefully removing a small object wrapped in a piece of cloth. Unwrapping it carefully, he revealed the flash drive, intact. The discovery of the flash drive caused a commotion among the small group gathered in the hospital parking lot. Detective Wilson held the device carefully, as if it were a precious relic. "We need to verify the contents immediately," he said, storing it in an official envelope, "and ensure Mr. Mitchell's safety." "How is this possible?" murmured Dr. Morgan, looking admiringly at the horse that now remained calmly beside Robert's wheelchair. "How did he know where the flash drive was?" "Some animals possess intelligence that defies our understanding," answered Michael. "But this is extraordinary." Robert extended his hand, caressing the animal's neck with gratitude. "Saved my life twice," he said with a choked voice, "first in the river, now with the evidence." Detective Wilson, although visibly impressed, maintained his focus on the investigation. "I'll assign 2 officers to guard your room, Mr. Mitchell. If Tom tried once, he might try again." Back in the hospital room, the small group was discussing the next steps when a nurse entered hurriedly. "Dr. Brooks, there's a news team in the lobby. So it seems someone leaked the story of the hero horse. And they're asking to interview Mr. Mitchell." The doctor frowned. "Absolutely not. My patient needs rest." "Actually," intervened the detective, "this media exposure could be beneficial for Mr. Mitchell's safety. The more public attention the case receives, the less likely Tom is to try something drastic." Robert nodded slowly. "I agree, and the public deserves to know about this hero," he said, indicating the horse that remained faithfully by his side. After some negotiations and arrangements, a controlled interview was organized in the hospital's inner garden. Reporter Amanda Collins, known for her seriousness, conducted the conversation. "We're here with businessman Robert Mitchell, protagonist of what many are already calling the Riverside Bridge miracle. Mr. Mitchell, can you tell us what happened?" "That night?" Robert, seated in his wheelchair with the horse posted beside him like a guardian, chose his words carefully. "I suffered an incident on the bridge. I fell into the river and certainly wouldn't be here if it weren't for this extraordinary animal," he replied, stroking the horse's neck. "He rescued me from the waters and brought me to the shore, where I was found by emergency response." "It's an unbelievable story," exclaimed the reporter, "and from what we've heard, the horse later escaped from the Animal Control Center and came straight to the hospital, finding its way to your room on its own. How do you explain this connection?" "Some connections transcend our rational understanding," replied Robert with a serene smile. "I believe I met this friend for a reason." The interview continued for a few minutes, with the reporter questioning the professionals present about the technical aspects of the rescue. Dr. Morgan explained the phenomenon of therapeutic zoo interaction, while Michael detailed the rescue on the riverbank. "One last question, Mr. Mitchell," said Amanda. "There are rumors that your accident may have actually been an attempt to silence you. Were you investigating irregularities in your own company?" A tense silence fell. Detective Wilson, who was observing nearby, made a subtle gesture indicating caution. "The police are investigating all circumstances of the incident," Robert replied diplomatically. "I cannot comment on ongoing investigations." The interview ended, but the damage was already done. Within minutes, speculations about a possible murder attempt flooded social media and news portals. In Tom's penthouse, the businessman watched the live broadcast with an expression of pure terror. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Company board. Members, lawyers, business partners, all wanting explanations. When he saw the horse next to Robert, a disturbing memory crossed his mind. That was the same animal he had seen jumping from the bridge on the night of the accident. "Impossible," he muttered to himself, pouring another glass of whiskey. His cell phone vibrated with an encrypted message. "Operation failed. Subject at hospital neutralized by security. Flash drive not recovered." Tom felt his blood freeze. He was rapidly losing control of the situation. At the construction company headquarters, news of the interview spread like wildfire. Employees gathered in front of televisions in the break room, commenting in hushed voices. In the finance department, 2 managers exchanged worried glances. "If Robert really discovered the scheme," whispered one of them, "we need to protect ourselves," replied the other. "I have copies of emails Tom sent me directing suspicious transfers." Late that afternoon, Detective Wilson led a small team to the president's office at the construction company, carrying a search and seizure warrant. While forensic technicians copied hard drives and seized documents, Sarah guided the investigators through the physical files, indicating precisely where to look. "These contracts here," she pointed to a folder labeled Special Projects, "have duplicates with different values. Robert discovered this a few weeks ago." At Tom's house, the businessman was frantically packing a suitcase when the doorbell rang. It was police officers with a preventive detention warrant. "Tom Harris, you are under arrest for attempted murder and financial crimes," announced the officer, handcuffing him in front of cameras from various news outlets that had been anonymously alerted. The fall was swift and spectacular. In 24 hours, the construction company's shares plummeted 30%. The administrative board met on an emergency basis to remove Tom from the directorship, and former business partners rushed to publicly distance themselves from the scandal. At the Isu hospital, Robert watched the developments with a serious expression. Detective Wilson had just informed him about Tom's arrest and the ongoing operation at the construction company. "The evidence on the flash drive is irrefutable," explained Wilson. "Emails, spreadsheets, recordings of meetings. He has no way to deny it." "How many people are involved?" asked Robert, concerned about the future of the company he had built over decades. "We're still mapping the network, but it seems Tom kept the circle restricted. Some financial managers, 2 directors, and some external partners. Most employees had no knowledge." Robert nodded, relieved to know that corruption hadn't contaminated the entire structure. "And what will happen to the company?" "That will depend a lot on your recovery, Mr. Mitchell. The board has already expressed a desire to keep you as president, if you feel capable." Robert looked at the horse, which had remained faithfully by his side since the rescue. "I have a purpose now," he said, with new determination in his voice, "and a friend who reminded me of the value of true loyalty." That night, as the hospital gradually quieted, Robert stayed awake, reflecting on the extraordinary events of the past few days. Beside him, lying on the floor on an improvised bed of blankets, the horse rested peacefully. "We need a name for you," murmured Robert, observing the animal. "Something that represents what you did for me." As if understanding, the horse raised its head, its intelligent eyes fixed on the man. "Spirit," decided Robert, "because you shined in my darkest night." The horse whinnied softly, as if approving the choice. 3 months had passed since the fateful night on Riverside Bridge. Spring had arrived in Portland, covering the city with colorful flowers and a rejuvenating energy that seemed to reflect Robert Mitchell's own journey. At Willow Creek Ranch, located 40 minutes from downtown, an old colonial mansion had been transformed over the past months. Access ramps replaced stairs, strategically installed handrails facilitated movement, and a modern structure of stables and riding rings harmoniously contrasted with the traditional architecture of the main house. Robert, seated in his wheelchair, on the porch, observed the activity in the main riding ring. Children with different types of disabilities interacted with carefully trained horses, under the supervision of specialized therapists. Smiles illuminated faces that, according to parents, rarely showed such joy. "The waiting list has already exceeded 200 children," reported Sarah, who now accumulated the functions of Robert's personal secretary and administrative coordinator of the Spirit Equine Therapy Center. "The project is growing faster than we anticipated." "Then we need to expand," Robert replied enthusiastically. "The eastern area of the property can be adapted for a second covered riding ring, and we should hire more therapists." Sarah smiled, admiring the transformation of her boss over the past months. The reserved and methodical man, consumed by corporate work, had given way to someone with renewed purpose and contagious energy. "How are the negotiations with the Department of Health?" "Progressing well. They're interested in transforming our program into a national pilot project. If approved, we'll receive funding to serve patients from public health care." A familiar whinny interrupted the conversation. Spirit, majestic in his now shiny and well-groomed coat, approached the porch. Unlike the other horses at the center, which worked with specific schedules and patience, Spirit enjoyed special freedom to roam the property. The handlers had already given up trying to restrict him to the stables. Somehow he always managed to open the most complex latches. "There's my friend," greeted Robert, extending his hand to caress the muzzle of the animal that gently rested, its head on his lap. "Ready for our ride?" Daily, regardless of weather or commitments, Robert reserved an hour for a private ride with Spirit. An adapted saddle allowed him to mount safely, despite reduced mobility in his legs. These moments had become sacred for his recovery, both physical and emotional. With a handler's help, Robert transferred to the saddle. Once settled, he dismissed any additional assistance. The connection between man and animal was so profound that words or reins became practically unnecessary. A slight pressure from the knees or a subtle inclination of the body was enough for Spirit to understand the desired direction. They rode to the top of a gentle hill, where a rustic bench had been installed under a leafy tree. It was Robert's favorite spot to contemplate the sunset and reflect on the extraordinary turnaround in his life. "Sometimes I still can't believe we're here," he commented to Spirit as he dismounted with the skill acquired through daily practice. "If you hadn't appeared that night—" The horse whinnied softly, as if responding to the unfinished reflection. Robert sat on the bench, and Spirit lay down on the grass nearby, an unusual behavior for horses, but one that had become habitual between them. As he observed the horizon, Robert recalled the events of the past months, the recovery, in the hospital, where Spirit had received special authorization to remain, Tom's trial, who had partially confessed to his crimes in a plea bargain, the restructuring of the construction company, now under new governance with strict compliance, protocols, but nothing compared to the personal transformation he had experienced. The decision to transform the family's old ranch into a therapeutic center had emerged during the long nights in the hospital, while observing the connection that hospitalized children established with Spirit during supervised visits. His phone vibrated in his pocket, interrupting his reflections. It was Michael Rodriguez, the emergency response officer, who had witnessed the rescue and since then had become a close friend. "Robert, you need to turn on the television. Tom's sentence has just been announced." Back at the main house, Robert and Sarah watched the special report. Tom had been sentenced to 12 years in prison for attempted murder and financial crimes. The images showed the former businessman with his head down, prematurely aged by months of legal proceedings and preventive detention. "Do you feel vindicated?" asked Sarah, carefully observing her boss's reaction. Robert reflected for a few moments. "It's not about vindication. It's about justice and consequences. I hope he finds redemption just as I found mine." That evening after dinner, Robert received a special visit. Dr. William Brooks, who had cared for him at the hospital, had come to see the therapeutic center. "Simply extraordinary," commented the doctor after a guided tour of the facilities. "You've transformed a personal tragedy into hope for hundreds of families." "We're still just beginning," replied Robert. "We want to expand the program to serve adults with psychological trauma, war veterans, people recovering from addiction. And all this began with an act of kindness on a stormy night," observed the doctor, "offering fruit to a lost horse." Robert smiled. "It's curious how the greatest transformations can arise from the simplest gestures, isn't it?" Later, on the porch under the starry sky, Robert was reviewing expansion plans when one of the handlers approached hurriedly. "Mr. Mitchell, we found something unusual during Spirit's veterinary examination." The concern in his voice alarmed. "Robert, is there a health problem?" "Not exactly. Dr. Morgan asked that you come to the main stable as soon as possible." In the illuminated stable, the veterinarian carefully examined Spirit's neck with a portable ultrasound device. "What did you discover?" asked Robert, fearing some serious condition. "See for yourself," she replied, turning the screen so he could see. "There's a metallic object implanted under his skin. It's not a conventional identification microchip. It's something more sophisticated." Robert examined the image with perplexity. How didn't we detect this before? It's deeply implanted, almost against the musculature. It wouldn't be found in a normal physical examination. We only detected it now because we're doing complete checkups on all animals for international certification. Can you remove it? Yes, it's a simple procedure, but I thought I should consult you first. Robert thought for a moment. Remove it, and I want that object analyzed in detail. 2 hours later, in a small improvised laboratory, Dr. Morgan showed Robert a tiny metallic piece, no larger than a grain of rice. It's a high-tech tracking, a device with characteristics I've never seen before. It seems to have an extremely advanced data transmission system. Robert examined the object, feeling a shiver run down his spine. Who would put something like this in a horse, and why? The question hung in the air without an answer, adding a new layer of mystery to Spirit's extraordinary story. The discovery of the tracking device implanted in Spirit opened a new dimension of mystery in Robert Mitchell's life. For weeks, he worked discreetly with a small group of specialists to unravel the origin and purpose of the sophisticated equipment. On a sunny Sunday afternoon, while the Equine Therapy Center was hosting families for an open house, an unmarked van parked near the main entrance. From it emerged a woman of approximately 60, with short grey hair and elegant posture, accompanied by 2 men with the appearance of security guards. Sarah was the first to notice her, approaching to offer assistance. "May I help you, ma'am?" "I need to speak with Robert Mitchell," replied the woman with a soft but perceptible accent. "It's a personal matter." "Mr. Mitchell is busy with visitors at the moment. May I know who would like to see him?" The woman removed her dark glasses, revealing intensely blue eyes and a penetrating gaze. "Tell him that Eleanor Clark is here. He doesn't know me, but he knows something that belongs to me." Sarah, intrigued, led the visitor to the side porch where she could wait with more privacy, and went in search of Robert, who was guiding a group of parents on the benefits of equine therapy. "A woman named Eleanor Clark wants to talk to you," she whispered in her boss's ear. "She said you have something that belongs to her." Robert frowned. The name meant absolutely nothing to him. "Can you take over here for a few minutes?" On the porch, he found the visitor attentively observing the riding ring where children were mounting therapeutic horses. "Mrs. Clark, I'm Robert Mitchell. How can I help you?" The woman turned slowly, studying him as if evaluating every detail of his appearance. "Finally, we meet, Mr. Mitchell. I've been following your story for months, since the famous bridge miracle." Something in the way she pronounced the words alerted Robert. It wasn't mere curiosity or admiration. There was a specific purpose. "How can I help you? I believe you found something in your horse, a small device, advanced tracking technology." Robert felt his blood freeze. The information about the device had been kept in absolute secrecy. "Who are you, really?" Eleanor smiled slightly, as if appreciating the directness. "I'm director of the Prometheus Institute, an international research organization in animal intelligence and interspecies communication, and I've come for the horse you call Spirit." At that moment, as if summoned, Spirit appeared trotting across the lawn toward the porch. Upon spotting Eleanor, the animal stopped abruptly, ears raised in total attention. "Hello, Hermes," she said softly. The horse whinnied and approached, lowering its head in a gesture that Robert had never witnessed before. "Hermes," repeated Robert, confused. "His registration name in the program," explained Eleanor, caressing the animal's neck with evident familiarity. "He was born at our center in Switzerland, part of a special equine cognitive development program." Robert observed the interaction with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. "What kind of program?" "Mr. Mitchell, what I'm going to tell you is classified as restricted information. Our institute has been developing research for decades on animal-human communication and cognitive enhancement in various species. Hermes, or Spirit as you call him, is part of our 3rd generation of horses with enhanced capabilities." "Are you saying he was genetically modified?" Eleanor made a gesture of denial. Nothing so invasive or unethical. We work with natural selection, cognitive training from birth, and stimulation of latent capabilities already present in horses, especially in breeds like the Andalusian thoroughbred. The result is animals with extraordinary levels of empathy, memory, pattern recognition, and problem-solving ability. Robert looked at Spirit with new eyes. This would explain behaviors that had always intrigued him: the horse's ability to open complex locks, his apparent understanding of human language, the way he seemed to anticipate needs. How did he get to Oregon? And why was he abandoned that night? Eleanor's countenance darkened. Hermes was part of a group of 3 animals that were being transported to our new research branch in Seattle. During the journey from the airport, the convoy suffered a robbery. The criminals, realizing it wasn't conventional cargo, abandoned the animals at different points in the city. We managed to recover the other 2 quickly thanks to the trackers, but Hermes' signal remained unstable for days, until it completely disappeared after your fall in the river. And you simply gave up looking for him? Questioned Robert, incredulous. Not at all. We kept search teams for weeks. Then we saw the report about the horse miracle. We recognized Hermes immediately, but decided to observe from a distance. The bond he established with you was unexpected and fascinating from a scientific point of view. Robert absorbed, each word trying to reconcile this new reality with the miracle he had experienced. So everything was just advanced training. The rescue, the way he hid the flash drive. Eleanor smiled enigmatically. Mr. Mitchell, our animals are trained to assist humans in emergency situations, recognize behavior patterns, and even identify threats. But what Hermes did for you goes beyond any training. None of our protocols includes jumping from a bridge to rescue someone or protecting evidence of a crime. What are you suggesting? That perhaps we are witnessing something that transcends science, a genuine connection between species, catalyzed by a simple act of kindness. Robert recalled that moment on the rainy night, the impulsive decision to stop and feed an abandoned animal. I came to recover him, continued Eleanor. Hermes represents years of research and extraordinary genetics. But first, I wanted to meet the man who inspired such actions in him. A heavy silence settled between them. Robert felt his heart tighten. The idea of losing Spirit or Hermes was simply unbearable. And if I refused to surrender him, he finally asked. Eleanor observed the horse, which remained beside Robert like a faithful guardian. Legally, he belongs to the Institute. But I didn't come here to impose laws or threaten with lawsuits. I came to understand. She pointed to the therapeutic center, where children with different needs were interacting with the animals. The work you're developing here is exactly the type of application we envisioned for our program. We didn't anticipate, however, that one of our animals could establish such a profound bond on its own initiative. What exactly are you proposing? A partnership. The Prometheus Institute could provide scientific support, specialized trainers, and even other animals from the program to expand your center. In exchange, we would monitor Hermes' development and his interaction with you and the patients. And he would stay here? With me? That would depend on him, replied Eleanor, surprising. Robert, our animals possess levels of decisional autonomy that many humans still don't understand. If we asked Hermes to return with us now, I believe he would refuse. As if to confirm her words, Spirit moved even closer to Robert, positioning himself protectively. To be honest, Mr. Mitchell, our scientists are fascinated with this unexpected connection. A horse genetically selected for advanced intelligence, developing deep emotional attachment after a simple act of kindness. This challenges many of our theories about animal behavior. Robert reflected on the proposal. A partnership with the EBAB Institute would mean important resources to expand the therapeutic center, benefiting hundreds of people. But something still bothered him. How can I trust you won't try to take him by force later? Eleanor smiled. Because we are scientists, Mr. Mitchell, and when reality challenges our expectations, we don't ignore it. She extended her hand to Spirit, who approached to smell it. This animal chose you. He risked his life to save you. protected evidence of a crime, chose to be your guardian. From a scientific point of view, separating you would be counterproductive and unethical. At that moment, Michael Rodriguez, who now worked as security coordinator for the center, approached hurriedly. "Robert, the children are asking to see Spirit. It's time for the special demonstration." "Tell them we're coming," replied Robert, exchanging a significant look with Eleanor. "We'll continue this conversation later," she proposed, "but first, I'd like to see this demonstration, if you don't mind." In the main riding ring, dozens of children and their parents waited anxiously. Many of these children faced significant challenges: autism, cerebral palsy, rare genetic syndromes. For them, interaction with the horses represented a rare moment of connection and joy. Robert entered the riding ring in his wheelchair, with Spirit walking majestically by his side. A murmur of admiration ran through the audience. "This is Spirit," he introduced. "Some of you already know him. Others are seeing him for the first time. He is a very special animal, with an incredible story." During the next hour, Robert and Spirit performed a series of interactive exercises with the children. The horse demonstrated extraordinary patience and sensitivity, adapting his behavior for each child, gentler with the smaller ones, more attentive with those who had motor difficulties, more expressive with non-verbal children. From her place in the audience, Eleanor watched with tears in her eyes. When the presentation ended and the crowd dispersed, she approached Robert again. "I think I have my answer," she said simply. "About?" "About Hermes's fate. He belongs in this place with these children. With you." She extended her hand, giving Robert a card with the Prometheus Institute logo. "Our partnership offer stands, without requiring his return. In fact, we would like to send a few more animals from the program if you're interested." Robert accepted the card, feeling an enormous weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you for understanding, and yes, I am interested in the partnership." Eleanor was preparing to leave when she stopped and turned one last time. "Mr. Mitchell, there's one thing you should know. Horses like Hermes live significantly longer than ordinary horses. Our first specimens have already surpassed 40 years maintaining full vigor. He will be with you for a long time yet." "How is that possible?" "We select not only for intelligence but also for longevity and resistance. And there's something else. Something we don't fully understand yet." "What?" "Our animals seem to strengthen through deep emotional connections. It's as if the bond with a human feeds something in their physiology. And the bond between you," she looked at Spirit, "is the most extraordinary I've ever witnessed." Weeks later, the Spirit Equine Therapy Center officially inaugurated its expansion. With technical and financial support from the Prometheus Institute, new facilities were built, the professional team doubled in size, and 6 new specially trained horses joined the CE program. In a simple ceremony, Robert cut the ribbon for the new therapeutic pavilion, which received the name Extraordinary Connections. By his side, Spirit remained imposing, now sporting an official equine director badge for the center. On Robert's favorite hilltop, a small bronze plaque was installed next to the bench under the tree. On it, a simple inscription summarized the extraordinary journey that had transformed so many lives. Sometimes the miracle begins with a banana and an apple. As summer turned to fall, the center's reputation continued to grow. Medical journals published articles about the remarkable recovery rates among patients in the program, particularly highlighting the special connection between patients and horses. On a crisp October morning, Robert sat in his office reviewing the latest reports when a knock came at the door. "Come in," he called. Michael Rodriguez entered, accompanied by Detective Wilson, now a regular visitor to the ranch. "We've got news," said Michael, his expression serious yet satisfied. "Tom Harris has decided to provide further testimony about other people involved in the scheme." "Is that why you're here?" asked Robert, genuinely curious. "Partly," replied Wilson, taking a seat, "but there's something else. During his extended confession, Tom mentioned something strange. He claims that on the night of the incident he saw the horse not only following your car, but seemingly watching him. He said, and I quote, It was as if that animal knew exactly what I was doing and was judging me for it. Robert smiled, looking out the window where Spirit was leading a group of younger horses across the pasture. "Perhaps he did," Robert said softly. "There's more," continued Wilson. "The psychological evaluation of Tom suggests that what broke him, what made him finally confess completely, wasn't just the evidence or the trial. It was the horse." "The horse?" "Yes. He kept seeing news stories about Spirit, about the rescue, about this center. He became obsessed with the idea that an animal had outsmarted him. His psychiatrist says he repeatedly mentioned that if a horse could show such loyalty and intelligence, what did that say about him as a human being?" Robert nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes our greatest teachers come in the most unexpected forms." After Wilson and Michael left, Robert made his way to the hill where he and Spirit often spent time together. As if sensing his presence, the horse appeared from the tree line, trotting toward him. "Did you hear that, my friend? It seems you've been teaching lessons to more than just me." Spirit gently pressed his muzzle against Robert's shoulder in what had become a familiar gesture of affection. That evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, a small girl in a wheelchair, a new patient named Emma who hadn't spoken a word since a traumatic accident 6 months prior, was brought to meet Spirit for the first time. As the handlers and therapists watched in amazement, Spirit approached her with extraordinary gentleness, lowering his head to meet her eyes. For nearly 5 minutes, horse and child remained still, looking at each other in what seemed like silent communication. Then, something miraculous happened. "Hello," whispered Emma, reaching out to touch Spirit's muzzle. Her mother burst into tears. The therapist stood frozen in astonishment. Robert, observing from a distance, simply smiled knowingly. Later, when asked how she felt able to speak again, Emma shrugged and said simply, "Spirit told me it was okay to talk again. He said someone helped him when he was scared, too." Word of Emma's breakthrough spread, bringing more attention to the center. Researchers from medical schools and psychological institutes began requesting permission to study the interactions between the special horses and patients. As winter approached, Robert received an unusual request. Tom Harris, from his prison cell, had asked to make a substantial anonymous donation to the center. Along with the donation came a letter. "Robert, there are not enough words to express my remorse. What I did to you and to our company, our employees, our clients, is unforgivable. But watching what you've built from that terrible night has forced me to reconsider everything I thought I knew about success, about purpose, about redemption. I don't ask for forgiveness. I ask only that you use these funds to help more people find what I lost long ago, humanity. Tom." Robert shared the letter with Sarah, who had become not just his right hand in the business, but a close friend. "Will you accept it?" she asked. "Yes," Robert replied without hesitation. "We'll use it to build the pediatric wing we've been planning." By spring, the Spirit Equine Therapy Center had become a nationally recognized model for innovative therapy. What had begun as one man's personal journey of healing had transformed into a beacon of hope for hundreds. On the anniversary of the night at Riverside Bridge, Robert and Spirit rode to their hilltop as dusk fell. As they watched the setting sun, Robert reflected on how a single moment, the simple decision to stop and help a rain-soaked horse, had altered the course of so many lives. "Some might call it coincidence," he said to Spirit, who listened with ears perked forward. "Others might call it fate. I just call it extraordinary." Spirit whinnied softly in response, and for a moment, just a brief, shimmering moment, Robert could have sworn he understood exactly what the horse was saying.